Hello, my wonderful viewers, and welcome to another episode of Betty Adams Overanalyzes. Today we are going to take a look at chapter 9. Today we are going to take a look at chapter 30 of Kaiju number 8. Someone wrote the number in there wrong in my notes, but once again the chapter felt far too short, and I felt driven to go back and count the pages when I was done just to confirm that it was in fact a full-length chapter, and yes it was. To no one's surprise. The story just flows so fast that it's easy to lose track of how long you've been actually reading. Once more, this was on the surface, a by-the-number battle beat. The big guns have arrived in the form of everyone's senpai, and the boss gets taken out. There was one final hump to get over where you're not sure if they're going to win this round without major losses, and then everything that the writers have been working on comes together. We get to see the physical limits of Mina's abilities as well as Hoshina's, and it is just as we expected. All the characters push themselves to our limits, and we find a lot more about how the weapons, the suit, and the world itself works. Interestingly enough, I do not know if the battle is over yet, or if they will fully defeat Kaiju number 10 in this story arc, but we'll get back to that later. So now, this is the part where I tell you to shoo off because there's about to be all sorts of spoilers, and to give you the time you need to wipe your fingers on your kilt and click off of the video so that you can go read it yourself. However, that is only a few short minutes of fun. If you want a few hours of entertainment to keep you chuckling until next Thursday, go check out my book, Humans Are Weird. I have the data. Monty Python meets Star Trek in this book of human absurdity. Check out the links below. And as an update, I have recorded over a dozen chapters for the audiobook, and am looking into getting the audiobook file ready to go when I even finished recording. I will make more updates on that as it develops. Now, back to the spoilers for Kaiju number 8, chapter 30. This artist is a master of making every scene do three things, as I've said before. This is technically the last, or occasionally the second to last, beat in any classic manga combat arc. The big bad is in his final form. The whole team comes together to finish off the big bad. Now, because the chapter ends before Kaiju number 10 has been properly double tapped, there is still a chance of a final half beat, the one where the defeated enemy slinks off. His core has been destroyed, but it only makes sense for the intelligence behind these Kaiju actions to have figured out to put a secondary core in a Kaiju of number 10 size, intelligence, and skill. You don't want to waste all that experience, especially if he was sent out to test this base, to learn about how they fight. There might be some little crawling thing that could be ejected like a life pod if things went south that would contain his memories. I think in the next chapter we might see one of the remaining wyverns snatch something up off the ground and fly away with it. We also get to learn something about Mina's tiger. Now, tigers being solitary creatures are notoriously hard to train, and for the most part, they're not that big, not as big as this one appears to be. But not only Mina have a massive-bodied, extremely cool-looking stripy cat, Bako, as I think she calls it, is extremely well trained. Now, what makes an animal trainable is if in its wild state it has a set of instincts that can be useful to humans. For instance, horses have a fancy dance competition that is called dressage. Each and every dance move that these horses have is an exaggerated form of natural movements that they use in the wild, fighting off predators or even fighting off fellow horses as competitors for food or mates. Dogs are so easy to train because as pack animals, they have to be able to communicate their actions and plans to each other, and they just figure the humans are their pack. House cats are able to live with us because they are naturally colony animals who help out their colony mates, even if they don't communicate and hunt like, say, dogs or lions would. So cats don't live in prides like lions, but they do live in colonies. So interestingly enough, they say that dogs are smart enough to understand that humans are a different creature from them, but they're willing to accept us into the pack anyway. Cats are not smart enough to understand that we're not cats, but they're willing to accept us and love us anyway, even though they think of us as just very stupid cats. Now, there is an animal that is naturally as large as Bako and does have the genes required to make it a pack hunter, and therefore makes it able to work with Mina in the way we see it do in this chapter. and how he I don't know if Bako's a he or she actually, works with Mina is very telling. Mina calls what is presumably Bako's name. I mean, it might be just a command that she gives him, but it's probably its name, and the giant stripy cat leaps around and leans against Mina's back. Mina then uses Bako's impressive mass to brace herself on when she fires off her giant hand cannon. Now, given that it's an energy weapon, we don't know what kind of recoil it has, but it clearly has some. We'll get into that more later. The suit might give Mina super strength, but it can't increase her mass, other than just by adding its own mass, of course, which, it being made of basically kaiju leather, is probably not negligible. They're probably pretty heavy. But anyway, Mina would need to brace against something strong in order to aim properly. To be useful, that something would have to be able to move fast and keep up with her speed. These are all practical, realistic problems that Bako is helping Mina to overcome, and they show a dedication to the actual natural laws of this universe on the creator's part. This dedication is why I think that they would have stuck to a realistic creature when crafting Bako, and that creature is the Liger. Yes, I said a Liger, not just like in Napoleon Dynamite. While they don't have magical powers, they are pretty rare and strange, and they come darn near as close to being magical creatures as we get. A liger is a hybrid between a male lion and a female tiger. Their parent cats are in the same genus, if different species, and are pretty closely related. Now, I could go on for hours just about ligers and what makes them special, but for the purpose of this video, let's stick to the fact that they are long-lived, incredibly massive, and have lion genes, making it plausible that a liger could be trained to work based on those pride-hunting genes. So, there's a practical reason for Mina to have a giant super fast animal at her side during battle, and a realistic animal to choose for that position. What I really want to know is, will they ever draw that cute giant belly pouch that ligers get as they age? Anyway, moving on. We learn more about how the suits work and how they get overpowered. It is a little hard to tell because of the flexibility of time in these situations, but it appears that as a Defense Force officer gains experience, they can control how much power they draw more precisely and thereby stay off the overheating longer. Shinamaya, who's presumably only drawing around her usual 50%, ended up overheating, as well as Vice Captain Hoshina, who was drawing 90-odd% for some time past the initial overheating incident. We learn that Mina's giant gun is not just an energy gun limited by her suit's power output, but also has physical cartridges that she has to keep track of and keep count of. This explains why in previous chapters the control room was fussy about her taking more shots than strictly necessary after she had already killed the fungus kaiju and was in no danger of overheating. It also explains the recoil of the gun and therefore why she needs Bako. Shifting from external things to the internal, we get a very, very interesting look into Vice Captain Hoshina's psyche. The good Vice Captain feels the need to not just prove his worth, but to prove his right to exist, or to prove that he does exist. That's a very interesting point of focus for someone like him, someone generally so confident. He needs to prove that he exists. This is where I just chew my fingernails in frustration that this is a translation and not written in the native tongue, because I can't tell if that was the implication that the author meant to create. Because that one line, look, I'll do a whole other video on this, but hear me out for now. Hoshina comes from a long line, at least 20 generations long, of kaiju slayers. If someone was monkeying around with making human kaiju hybrids, it would make sense that Hoshina's clan would be involved. So, what if Hoshina's skill isn't wholly natural? What if the reason that Hoshina suspects that Kafka might be a human kaiju hybrid is that Hoshina himself is one? It is something to think about. Finally, we get confirmation of Mina's weakness, and it is pretty logical, as we expected. That giant cannon of hers is unwieldy. She can't swing it around like a smaller gun, so her attacks didn't do much against small, fast kaiju. Even the giant form of Kaiju number 10, hemmed in by the buildings of the Defense Force, is a hair too fast for her to target. So, there you have it, folks. Chapter 30 of Kaiju number 10, and a week-long wait for our next chapter. To fill the void of that week, pop over and check out a copy of my book, Humans Are Weird. I have the data, Monty Python meets Star Trek in this book of human absurdity, available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Google Play Books, and Kobo. And, of course, if you want a signed author copy, just email me at bettyadams@authorBettyAdams.com. You can find the email on my website. And email me, and I can send you a signed author copy in exchange, and you can just pay me on PayPal. All right. Peace out, my wonderful viewers.
The book from author Betty Adams, Humans Are Weird, I Have the Data, is a humorous look at human behavior through the eyes of aliens. This book is arranged in separate reports or essays, documenting the experiences with humanity through the lens of the aliens who have to interact with them. This anthology of short stories and vignettes from alien points of view highlights some of humanity's quirks we can all relate to. Author Betty Adams captures how strange and interesting humans can really be. This is a fun collection of stories you will really get a kick out of. Humans Are Weird, I Have the Data, from author Betty Adams. Order your copy right now on Amazon.